And then, we'll get off to the races, so to speak.
And for everybody on Zoom, we haven't started yet. We'll get started in a few minutes. Please stop chatting.
Okay, we're going to start now. My name is Valerie Mason, and welcome to the. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right, okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, I appreciate that. So, welcome again, I'm Valerie Mason, I'm the Chair of Community Board 8. This is a continuation of our hearing of the application ULURP number N25015227RM. I know you all have that committed to memory. It's the Lenox Hill Hospital project. I want to welcome you to our meeting this evening. I want to go through a couple of the ground rules of tonight. We conducted the first part of this meeting on March 12th, which was entirely open to the public for public testimony. We heard from more than 100 members of the public. Since March 12th, we have been accepting written testimony from the public. And what we discussed in March is that this part of the meeting, the meeting tonight, will be for Manhattan Community Board 8 members only to ask questions of the applicant. And then at some point during the evening, we will move to consideration as to whether we are going to approve or disapprove the application. And there are also additional alternatives that we can approve something with conditions, we can straight out approve it, we can disapprove the application in its entirety, or we can disapprove it unless certain conditions are satisfied. And for those of you who are new to the process, I'll just repeat again how this process works. We are now at the first stage of this application, which is the community review process. That's what you are at this evening. We will, at the end of the evening, have a resolution, and that resolution will be sent to the Manhattan Borough President's office. That would be Mark Levine, for those of you who don't know. The Borough President will have 30 days to review the application, and he will make his recommendation as to the project. We will, of course, send our resolution with all the testimony that we've received to the Borough President for his consideration. He then will send the application back to City Planning Commission, and they have 60 days, once the BP has reviewed it, to hold a hearing and vote on the application to see whether it will move forward. Assuming that it does move forward, it then moves to the City Council. And the City Council has 50 days from its receipt of the CPC report to call up the application and vote on it. Assuming that the application is approved by the City Council, the mayor has 5 days to review the City Council's decision and issue a veto. Otherwise, whatever the application or whatever is approved through this entire process will move forward, and it will be considered a final project with all the, whatever it is at that point. So this is not a unique process. It happens all throughout the city of New York. We have 1 or 2 or maybe even 3 a year. I will be completely frank and say we usually don't get this big a turnout for all of our ULURP applications, so we're happy to have you here tonight. It means that you are engaged in the community, and we're happy to hear from you. The other thing I want to say tonight is this is how it will work. Everyone will be respectful and civil towards one another. If you're not, I will have you removed from the room. Part of the civility component is please don't applaud or boo. We're using what I like to call the city council rules, which are if you enjoy something and you support it, you move your arms like this. If you don't like it, just put a thumbs down, okay? And I would appreciate if you would follow that because it will help us move through the comments and questions as we go along. And with all that said, there will be people moving in and out. Board members are sitting in the first 3 rows. For those of you who aren't as familiar with the community board process, as you might be, there are technically usually 50 members of the community board seated at one time. They're all appointed by the Manhattan Borough President with some input from the city council people who cover this district. You are actually in Community District 8 for those of you who are unaware. And that being said, if you have a question, as I said earlier, this is really only for questions from community board members and comments from community board members tonight. You do have the opportunity, if you have a question or you think that you want somebody to ask a question on your behalf, please, there are some note cards, write your question down and you can put it on the stool that man is sitting on. But that is the question of stools, the stool question seat. If board members, if one of our board members wants to get up and go through the question and ask one of the questions from the stool, that is their prerogative. But there's no guarantee that question will be answered. I just want to say that we have been considering this application for quite a long time. There's been quite a number of opportunities for you to have your questions answered. Whether you think the answer was satisfactory, that's a determination that you have to make for yourself. So you might not hear every question that's in your head answered tonight. I urge you, you can go back to the YouTubes, look at the Q&A that has gone on. We've had not only the formal Euler process, but we have had zoning meetings where Lenox Hill Hospital has come and talked about the project, where we've had additional community input. So let's get to the business at hand. We're going to open up with a statement from the applicant, Dr. Daniel Baker. Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Valerie, and thank you to the entirety of the community board for being here this evening, for allowing us to come yet again to speak with you and have a dialogue. As I've done at every meeting, I'd like to start a little bit about why we're here. I'm the president of Lenox Hill Hospital, and it's my diligence to represent our patients. We are very proud of the clinical care that we provide to so many patients across New York City, and we want to be there for them for the future and for generations to come. So it's about both putting the patient at the center of our care and our patients deserving better from a modernization, and equally about the permanence of our institution. I was outside of our Greenwich Village hospital, Northwell Greenwich Village Hospital on 13th and 7th. It's previously been known as Lenox Hill Greenwich Village just last night. If you look across the street, you'll see a brand new set of condominiums. Those condominiums were St. Vincent's Hospital. And unfortunately, in 2010, New Yorkers lost over 150 years of dedication to healthcare when St. Vincent's closed, in part due to a lack of modernization and infrastructure support. I have a lot of colleagues and individuals that I know that worked at that hospital and felt very dearly about that, as did the community. In that same year, Northwell found a financially struggling institution on the Upper East Side by Lenox Hill Hospital, and committed and acquired our hospital, and has continued to put money into the infrastructure and effort into our clinical programs. And what we have been able to do now that is so different from then, from the remarkable clinical medicine that we offer, is extraordinary. A few short years later, after that initial investment in Lenox Hill Hospital, Northwell also then invested in a building across the street from the former St. Vincent's. Later this year, that building, Northwell Greenwich Village Hospital, will open up inpatient beds will have a fully functioning emergency department, a cardiac cath lab, ORs, endoscopy, and full imaging. And for the first time in just shy of 2 decades, Greenwich Village will have a micro hospital again. It is rather ironic that we're here today, about to lose another 125 years of history in healthcare, as this is the last day that Beth Israel will remain open. That announcement went out this morning. They closed the emergency department at 9 a.m. While we didn't have the ability to save St. Vincent's, and we don't have the ability to save Beyond, we do have the ability tonight to future-proof that same existence for us. Investment now, allowing that we have that continued permanence in our home on the Upper East Side, where we have been for over 160 years. Tonight, it's the community board's opportunity to be stewards of healthcare and the future of healthcare for all of New Yorkers, not just on the Upper East Side. And so in our dialogue tonight, I just ask that that is top of mind. That is the patients, the doctors, the clinical care that we're offering that are all part of this project. We've been asked in advance for a couple of things, and so I just wanted to bring up some of these highlights. We were asked to bring a model, which is over here to my right. The model demonstrates the changes that we have had in this building and the proposal since 2019, when we were first in front of the community board. The model on the far left is the 2019 proposal. The one that's adjacent to it, as well as the one that is intermixed in the city itself, are the two proposals which are part of our current ULURP and land use application. While I know that there are still many that are not content with what that looks like, it does demonstrate a commitment to listening and a commitment to change in how we have lowered the height of the building and how we have continued to try and adapt the fates and structure of the building to what we hear from you all. We've also been asked a variety of questions about zoning. We have submitted those answers to the community board, and we're here to further talk about those tonight. And there was another round of questions centered around building sustainability. This process is about an envelope. It's not about a final build. It's not about a final design, and our renderings remain illustrative, excuse me. So what I will point to is the same commitment that we've had in sustainability to our project on 3rd Avenue, where we are really focused on the impact that it will have both to the environment and those that work in the building and those patients that will be in that building as well. It will be local law 97, and it will be, I will turn to my colleague, a building certified. So we echo that commitment in what we attempt to build with the redevelopment and modernization of our current facility. So I'll hand it back over to Valerie.
Okay,
For the questions.
Thank you very much. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our host tonight, Brick Church, who is allowing us the space tonight and waiving their fee as well. So thank you to Brick Church.
Thank you to him.
Yes, thank you very much. Okay, so we will start. I will ask board members to raise their hands. And then we will just keep track. Jane, you're the first up.
Yeah, if you don't mind standing up and, because we only have one mic right now, it's working.
I was at the last hearing, which was in March.
There's only one mic right now that's working, and if you're talking over her, no one.
Okay, I think we're.
She should go.
Yeah, I just show my. Thank you.
Oh, it's working now.
Okay. Thank you so much. I know you have to speak. Thank you. I attended the last.
Yep.
It doesn't sound right, but now it does. Okay. I attended the last hearing. I think there were 122 speakers. Each one was allowed a minute apiece. There were two speakers that really stood out in my mind. One was a young woman who spoke to the three brilliant architects who have designed three recent buildings in the immediate vicinity of the Lenox Hill Hospital. The Sofield Studio building on East 79th Street that replaced the old Hunter School of Social Work. The Peter Canoyer apartment building on East 78th Street just off Lexington. and the Robert A.M. Stern building at the corner of 78th and Lexington. So it's very disappointing to see such a banal building that Lenox Hill has in mind, or I should say Northwell has in mind, for its new hospital building. I pass all, now it doesn't sound like.
It's fine.
it's
Keep going.
okay. I pass all the time in, new ambulatory unit on 76, between 76th and 77th Street on Third Avenue. 8 stories high. There's no architectural distinction whatsoever to it, which to me is just an utter embarrassment when Northville has an opportunity to come to us with something that could maybe later even be landmarked, the way New York Hospital, the Presbyterian Hospital is landmarked. So important for future generations to see beautiful architecture. A hospital can be in a beautiful building, just the way you know, you look at the quad up at Columbia or whatever and how it inspires people and they just go there. Okay, so I have some questions from one of our neighbors, Andrew Suslav, who's really been organizing the community for a couple of years now. And he had a couple of questions.
You're not gonna be asked, you can't do all the questions, Shane.
Okay, well, I'm gonna do one of them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Have you ever, this is his first question, have you ever considered designing the renovation of Lenox Hill Hospital within the existing zoning limit and building a medical campus on another site in Manhattan? That's my question. I'll make it my own question.
I'm sorry. Yeah, well, you do this, nobody's gonna ask. It is.
I'm not certain this is on.
No.
Microphones.
Just hang on for a second, he's fixing.
We'll be patient with the microphone.
Here's your.
What happened?
There we go, a little bit, no.
Just keep talking and then.
So I'll try and project.
I think it's working.
If it's working, or if it's not working, I'll still try and use the loudest voice I have. Keep both of them, one of them should work. Okay. All right, regardless, in an attempt to get to the answer of this, when we look at the building that we're proposing. It's not working now. I'm gonna start juggling.
I know.
You're gonna have to stand up again. Well, it's caused by the film crews.
Maybe I'll send. That worked for a second. The way that we got to our building and the way that we got to our zoning and the ask centered around that was based on our clinical needs. And our clinical needs don't fit within the current zoning that we exist in as we do today. Not working. I don't know what to tell her.
They're trying to.
Okay.
All
The answer in short is that
Yes,
Hold on, just
continue.
give us 1 second, 1 second.
So all of the film crews have their wireless mics next to the soundboard. If you guys, there's another speaker over there that maybe you guys could move your microphones in. That's what he's saying. Yes, I'll be right here.
Okay, I'm glad we figured that out.
right.
Do you want to try it now?
Sure.
Okay.
There. Not with permits.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't hear the speakers at all, but,
Okay. I'm not.
Can you put them somewhere else?
Actually,
I'm gonna try both. This might seem to work.
Yeah.
Okay, again, part of how we got to where we are today is because we looked at all of the clinical programming that we have in the building. Our behavioral health, our maternal child, our cardiothoracic, our emergency department, and that's what got us to the zoning needs and the massing needs of where we are. With regard to a separate parcel of land or a separate spot, we do not have that. And so we have not evaluated that.
Next, Alita.
Thank you. You mentioned that there will be new beds downtown in the village. How many beds is that?
There will be 8.
8. In 2019 at the task force, it was mentioned that people from downtown who entered the emergency room had to be shipped up here in order to admit them. 8 beds doesn't seem like enough for everyone below 42nd Street. So will you still be needing to bring people up here who are hospitalized to admit them?
Yes. Yes. Can't tell if I'm in Shakespearean. The answer is yes, we will still continue to bring patients from Greenwich Village area up to Lenox Hill on the Upper East Side. 8 beds is not enough. It is what we have as a capacity in the area. We are still trying to keep patients in the area of where they live, and that is our commitment with those 8 beds. There's a limit in terms of what we can do.
That suggests a need for hospital beds downtown.
I'm not going to debate the need for hospital beds across the entirety of New York City. Again, I point to the fact that we exist as hospital beds where we are on the Upper East Side.
Thank you.
Gail?
Following up on Alita's question regarding hospital beds. If you go onto Google, you'll see that Lenox Hill has. Lenox Hill, just go ahead, go on to Google. You'll see that Lenox Hill Hospital.
Okay, well, if you're all gonna yell, you're not gonna hear anything.
No, no.
I'm going to put my phone to your mouth. Okay, let's.
They're trying to find us a wired mic. They're trying to find us one. But, like,
I don't know.
No, it's not gonna work. Just wait. We're waiting to get a wired mic, and so that's what we're waiting for. Well, we should wait. Well, thank you for telling us that. Yes. No, because they won't be able to hear.
Oh, okay.
That.
Maybe it works now with my phone.
You're trying.
If you go on to Google and just Google Lenox Hill Hospital, you'll see that you have 449 beds. However, on March the 6th, with your submission to the New York State Department of Health, you had 465 beds, with 44% of the beds not occupied. However, in April, just a month later, when you look at your reports that went into the Department of Health, you had 121 fewer beds or 344 beds. So rather than the 44% of availability, you had 27%. Can you kind of clarify what you're talking about? How many beds do you have in the new project? How many beds do you really need? And how is this data getting collected? Thank you.
Okay, so yes, thank you, actually. So one of the opportunities from this dialogue was that we noticed an error in our reporting on that report. That's the current survey. It was started in COVID to understand bed availability. And it's complex in terms of what bed means what bed means what bed. And it was double counting beds for us because we were putting in total beds, but then it was counting ICU beds, nursery beds, mother baby beds, and all sorts of beds differently, which deflated our occupancy. And what we corrected was the number of acute care beds as per the actual definition of the Department of Health to the correct number. So I apologize that there was an inappropriate statistic that made it seem that we were a lot less full than we are. And that has been corrected, and I thank you for bringing that correction to our attention.
Okay, Elizabeth.
I first want to say that I don't think there's any member of this community board that does not want to see Lenox Hill have a modernized facility. And I will put that out there. What we're all asking about, frankly, is scale. And why is this scale necessary? So when we look at your proposal for the hospital space, just the hospital space, whether that's the 2019 or the current, it's about the same. In fact, The current proposal is a little bit higher because you're keeping more of your older space, presumably less efficient space. And that's about 1 million square feet of zoning square feet, not even including mechanical and things that don't get counted. In addition to that, a block away on Third Avenue, Northwell is building a 200,000 zoning square foot facility for outpatient support. So in total, Lenox Hill is really saying that you need about 1.2 million square feet, zoning square feet, not including the stuff that doesn't get counted, to provide its current services to this community. And that's about double what you currently have. So my question is, does every urban hospital have 1.2 million square feet? Does every Northwell hospital have 1.2 million square feet of space? Because we want a hospital, we want a modern hospital, but we want a modern hospital that is right size for this community. And the fact that you're saying you can't get it done in less than double the space you currently have, and you can't get it done in less than 1.2 million zoning square feet, not including all the other stuff that doesn't get counted in that. I find that statement to be extraordinary. And I can't quite believe that there isn't a high quality hospital that is 800,000 square feet or even in square feet that provides outstanding.
Doing fine there, then
So-
messed up.
What is it that makes other hospitals able to do it? And you need 1.2 million square feet, more, that's about double what you currently have. And I support your building more square footage. I support your going above the current zoning envelope. But this is double, and that seems excessive.
Do you want to respond to that or?
Thank you. I don't have an answer to the part that was the question. In terms of what the square footage is of multiple hospitals across urban America or in Morgan. It's not a fair question by any means, in that it doesn't represent the state of modernity or infrastructure for any of those hospitals or compare them. A hospital is not a hospital, it's not a hospital across urban. I understand the concern that you have. The challenge again with what we're doing and the reason that the square footage should stay the same from the different models that you see is because, like I said before, we've built from the clinical programs. We looked at continuing our inpatient psychiatry beds. We looked at continuing our maternal child beds. We looked at continuing all of our surgical beds, our oncology beds, our medicine beds, and there, and there, and there. And that's how we got to the need. The biggest change in what we're doing is that we're changing from beds that are in shared rooms to beds that are in single rooms. It is the only appropriate care that should really exist for the patient. And that's why we're committed to it. That drastically changes the total square foot that we need to operate the same clinical services that we do today.
On now, Marco.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna make my statement.
Wait,
No.
Marco, 1 second, just for everyone in the room. Marco has a little bit of trouble being understood. So we're gonna put his testimony on the screen.
Hear you, right?
Yes. Okay.
Marco has a little bit of trouble now this microphone is working, being understood, he thinks, even though I think he can be understood quite easily. So he asked us to put his remarks on the screen so that if you can't hear him or understand him, you'll be able to read his remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Valerie. Northwell can reduce the out-of-scale building height under the current plans by around 100 feet without affecting its medical programmatic needs. There is a way to reduce the height of this hospital by eliminating some of these unnecessary old-fashioned mechanical systems. Euler's discretionary actions are not to reward the designer's evil with unlimited quantity of floor area and building height, but to provide some minimal relief that these medical programmatic needs require. Indeed, the proposed mechanical rooms represent 25% of the building height, with approximately 100,000 not countable floor area. No, well, you told us in one of the community board meetings that you are planning to use trial and error, because he said that he's gonna go back and forth to the Department of Buildings approach to get the approval for the energy application. That you don't even know the exact space needed for mechanical systems. Precious energy is boosted through the phenomenon and unsustainable building materials, glass and metal, on the cladding, as well as the obsolete and inefficient conditioning and ventilation system. Not to those heights that are taller than are needed, make for baseless mechanical ducts and mechanical rooms. In addition, energy is wasted through the disproportional window-to-wall ratio penetration that transfer uncontrollable energy loss from the inside to the environment. These buildings will function as an elegant barrier to warm up the environment, illogical of course, and won't comply either with Local Law 97, Article 320, and Energy Code, regardless if you are proposing electrification. On the other hand, this building could achieve zero carbon emissions with the new foundation that you are going to build. You have the opportunity to use geothermal system to capture the carbon emissions underground. This will greatly reduce the bulky mechanical ducts for conditioning this building, as well as the reduction of potential growth of bacteria such as Legionnaires' disease. Also, some mechanical equipment could be relocated to the roof of the RAB buildings. Consequently, this building height could be significantly less oppressive if there is a reduction of the obsolete proposed mechanical system and using more sustainable building designs and materials. Thank you.
You want to respond or?
Yeah, I got it. We got it. So, okay, yeah, just a couple of comments. I know we had a great conversation. Can you guys hear me? Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jonathan Cogswell. I'm the Vice President of Design and Construction for Northwell Health. We had a wonderful conversation about this earlier tonight. I appreciate that conversation. Just a couple of points. Geothermal is something that we at Northwell have looked at multiple times and actually have applied at some of our hospitals. We do know that when we looked at the Department of Buildings site where they have evaluated all around the geotechnical properties around Manhattan and other parts of the boroughs, that they've identified 900 sites within New York City that are appropriate, and they're actually encouraging people to look at geotech. Unfortunately, our area of the Upper East Side is not one of those. I mean, we talked about sharing that information with you. And then as we talk about, you know, the different systems you were talking about with the distributed air systems, et cetera, you know, it is something absolutely that we are considering for the facility, and that we're looking at wherever we can. And we will continue. When you talked about the trial and error that we were talking about in our last meeting, it really relates to the fact that technology within the mechanical systems is developing very quickly. And we are continuing to follow that because we have a very strong commitment at Northwell to sustainability across our health system. We believe in going above and beyond what is required in code everywhere we can. And that will be a pillar of this project, that we will make the most sustainable hospital we can make. And meet all of the requirements, ASHRAE and Department of Health requirements that are out there that we must follow.
No. Sorry.
Yes, my concerns here basically how big the structure is and how long the construction period. You mentioned the room issue, and the room issue comes down to the patient bed issue is the issue, in my view. And, you know, you have some vacancies now, and now modern training and hospitalization is to get people out as soon as possible. And so I don't see why you can't do with less room. That would make the structure come down quite a bit.
Okay.
Can you answer that?
I don't think they want to respond to that, Chuck.
Okay.
I mean, so it's, no, I mean,
Yeah.
We are one of the most remarkably efficient individuals with throughput, individual institutions with throughput, and understanding that we like to get patients home safely, first and foremost, and quickly after that, with the appropriate care that they need. We have done our due diligence on our room need based on, again, our clinical services, and that is what gets us to that.
Sharon. And then we'll come.
Thank you. I want to offer a resolution and.
No, we're not doing that now. These are
Okay.
questions.
Okay, I understand. Then I'd like to offer my comments on this application.
We can't hear you.
Yes. Board members, please oppose the Lenox Hill Hospital expansion as presented for 3 reasons. It has a massive floor plate of 30,000 square feet, a proposed possible height to 436 feet, and a 10-year build program. While we all support modernized hospital facilities, as Elizabeth Rose said earlier, the combination of bulk, height, and multi-year build program all conspire to destroy the unique and vibrant character of the immediate community, as well as the surrounding neighborhoods and beyond, all at the expense of an outsized institutional expansion. And let's not forget as well the visually blunt aesthetics of such a massive tower that will severely diminish the distinctive and world-renowned urban landscape of the Park Avenue Improvement District. When we disapproved the development proposal, board members, as presented, we offer Lenox Hill the opportunity to do much better by its neighbors and the broader community as a whole. I urge you to consider offering Lenox Hill the opportunity to do better by this community, and I'm asking board members to please disapprove this application.
I'm just trying to go back and forth. Elizabeth, go ahead.
I hope you can hear me if I don't stand up.
Put it closer to you.
Okay, I think that the case against this proposal, I would consider it all a proposal because we get a building and its construction. We, I think, demonstrating, at least to my eyes, that the scale and character of the community will be severely damaged. If it wouldn't, we wouldn't have that zoning. The construction will severely damage for many years the quality of life of the neighbors of the building. But I think there's one group that I want to introduce into this discussion too. I cannot imagine anything more deleterious to the well-being of people who are sick enough to be in the hospital or recovering from surgery than staying in a construction site. So I hope that we
and Lenox Hill consider this multiple damage that they're doing would do if they build this, the hospital is admired, welcome. But I hope that they will realize that the sensible thing to do in this circumstances is to renovate the current hospital, keep it there revolving. And, also to construct, the proposal somewhere else where it will not damage, anybody. They might have to reconfigure the building, but there is an alternative that I think makes a lot of sense. And I hope that, we ask that they do it and that they see that this is how it should be done.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Craig later.
Thank you. One question that I have, and then I'd like to make, some remarks. The question basically goes back to the same thing about capacity. So when we speak about, I guess now it's 27%, of excess capacity or vacancy, can you explain what that means exactly? Because my understanding, if capacity is that's, or my assumption is that is an average, and there are going to be times where you have more vacancy and you have times where you have less vacancy or no vacancy. And I believe we heard people, I forget if it was from your team or if it was from the public, talking about hallway beds having to be used at times. And I want to just have an understanding of what this all means in the context of that 27% figure. Thank you.
Sure. A couple of different pieces from that. There are two numbers that are represented on the New York State Earth Survey. One is the 7-day average, the other is the prior day. It's not an average, it's a proportion of the beds, depending on the bed type, that remain open and don't have a patient. An average for us is around 80% full in terms of the total beds. Part of the challenge for us and why we keep at 80% in many ways as best as possible is because we have to match individual patients to the rooms that they share a room with. You lose capacity when you have to make certain that the person who is of a female gender needs to go into a female room when that bed actually may be available is that for a man, because there's a man in the room. So there are complex pieces there that make it where an 80% capacity, which is where we tend to be, work very well to the gentleman's comment on throughput and making certain that we are going as quickly as we can to get patients home safely. When I've spoken previously about beds in the hallway, that's predominantly in our emergency department. That is remarkably over capacity. That's not reported on the HERT survey. It's not understood well until you're there. And it is a point, our chair of our emergency services is here this evening. He could equally speak to this. He's been a colleague and a longtime friend for quite some time. He knows very well, again, the trials of working in an environment that is way too small for the number of patients that come through. So that's a little bit of where those different pieces happen. There are some hospitals which have higher capacity that has innumerable consequences, usually far larger wait times in the emergency department, both for getting into a bed that you may have been admitted to, as well as receiving care, period. It backs up the operating rooms where you have patients that are waiting in the recovery room rather than actually getting to their bed, because again, of the availability. And there are institutions where there are beds in the hallways for those who are admitted. So understandingly, it's a complex component piece of the overall throughput of the building, but that's where we stand.
All right.
So go ahead, Craig.
All right, thank you for that. So I guess I probably have a little bit of a different perspective than others. I clearly am in agreement that this is a far from perfect proposal, and I do think that major changes are needed. As Elizabeth Rose so eloquently stated, this is a very big ask, especially in light of the community having made clear that the proposal's too big, too bulky, too dense, too tall, and out of context. And I, for one, would like to see at minimum removal of the additional patient beds to reduce the extent to which additional FAR and height are needed. And also, I'm extremely concerned about the impact resulting from construction. No one should have to live with 10 years of construction impact. And I ask Norfolk, please try to do better and figure out how to mitigate that. But as this matter transcends zoning, I can't accept any outcomes that disrupt the hospital's operations or any notion that it should relocate to another neighborhood. That is, to me, severely misguided and would cause irreversible harm to our community and send a chilling message to our academic, cultural, and medical institutions that have really made our community district what it is in terms of being a world-renowned place to work, visit, and live. In these tumultuous times, they help to provide stability to our residents and small businesses and keep us more shielded from economic downturns than elsewhere in our great city. I also struggle to accept the attacks on this project involving objections to or questioning of today's healthcare best practices. So, for example, the accusation that eliminating shared patients' rooms is a money grab rather than truly benefiting patient outcomes, it really infuriates me. So does the suggestion that the hospital has this excess capacity issue and doesn't need to maintain its current number of beds, and as was just explained, need to address some of the inefficiencies that exist that result in hallway beds, regardless of where it is, emergency room or if you're in a regular room, because that ignores the personal experiences of many people, including me. Just last year, I had a close family member at another hospital relegated to a hallway bed for 2 days, and we have heard accounts that this is happening in the emergency room here at Lenox Hill. That's not a dignified way for any patient to receive medical care. So I try to think about this from my professional perspective as a transportation planner. I do service planning for a major bus system, and if I were to propose limiting trips that were operating with some unfilled seats, such as what's akin to what we're talking about here, it would be really catastrophic in terms of it would result in overcrowded conditions and a less safe, less reliable, and less comfortable experience for our passengers, not to mention people not being able to necessarily access their jobs, schools, and shopping needs. So to me, the same reasoning holds true with Lenox Hill Hospital. If such flawed reasoning were used to justify a reduction of their capacity, it would be catastrophic to our community, with the difference being potentially life and death if the hospital is at capacity. So for those reasons, I really hope we could find a common sense compromise here, but I'm not inclined to support a disapproval. I want to see hopefully us finding some middle ground, and I would think that that's probably the most likely outcome at the end of the day anyway, whether it's here or as this process completes. So thank you for listening.
Okay, great. Who else we can go to now? Police. I'm just trying to move it around. Police Farber, sorry, I'm gonna try to.
Hi, I'll be relatively short in my question. There's been a lot of conversation about the impact of the construction duration. And from what I've read in the materials, it's about 6 to 6.5 years until the building is fully developed. But only a portion of that construction is really the part that is most impactful to the community. So can you talk a little bit about that? How long that portion might be? And then what some of the mitigation efforts are that you're planning on taking to minimize the impact on the community?
So to your point, the 6 years that we talked about in the schedule is not all the same type of construction. It's, as you think about construction, as we do all throughout New York City, what is your most disruptive part of construction? It's usually during the excavation phase, during where they're digging in the ground, where they're hammering at rock. And that is usually the most disruptive part of construction from a noise perspective, which would happen obviously at the very beginning of the project, as we create the foundation of the building. We are in this case planning a steel building. So we should see the superstructure go up relatively quickly in this building, and then we have to hang a facade on the outside of it in order to enclose it to continue with the work inside. So as we look at those phases of the project, that's kind of what we look at as spanning over that 6-ish year period at the beginning, that will then fully enclose the building and bring us inside to work similar to what we do today. That's work with inside, fit out, renovation work of the building.
I know that we'd like to get to very, very specific aspects of exactly how long, and we don't have all of those yet. What you do have is a commitment from us to try and make this as short as possible. I know that that is something that we've been talking about for quite some time, that we are well aligned in wanting this to go faster. I know the community does not appreciate that it's faster than it was at the beginning. I understand that, but it is. And we are committed to continue to look at this throughout the project to make it as quick as we can.
Can you give it to Sasha so and keep them?
Hi, you know, I really just have a few comments.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, you know, I'd like the general community to also remember how long construction on the Second Avenue subway was and how disruptive that was. That was a decade. And that's just something we all use now. And I love it. I hated it when it was happening. 6 years for external construction for something that will benefit the overall community, the city, regardless of the concern of bulk and height, which this board approved the East 94th Street rezoning of a mid-block tower of over 400 feet. So I am not quite seeing the same concern for something that's close to Lexington Avenue and Park Avenue as the concerns for 3rd Avenue, 2nd Avenue, 1st Avenue, where we see the bulk of loss of housing. This site is not having us lose any housing. And out of the two options, if I had to vote between the two options, I would go with the one that doesn't have the mid-block tower. Because you still do get light and air if things are concentrated on the avenue. And I'm not someone who loves high-rise buildings or development, but I do understand how difficult it is to build healthcare facilities. It is not like any other construction. It takes up a lot more space. But one question for Lenox Hill, how, with this whole timeline, what does that look like with financing? And I say that because we're in a difficult market and I hate to see us go through with any kind of rezoning and then this sits here. And it sits and it doesn't move and you're not delivering and it's just down to market conditions and the question is, why did we even pursue it? So I'd like to see, you know, understand a bit better what that means in this current market to build. Thank you.
I don't know that anybody knows anything about this current market, particularly given today. With that said, while we're not going to discuss the pure financing and every aspect of that vehicle, the way that the construction will work is that there will be and need to be a commitment to funds to begin the construction. The construction groups and companies that we will work with, and those are not willing to do the exact same thing that you don't want to have happen, which is a project that stalls midway through due to funding. So the capital commitment, the commitment to financing has to be present at the beginning so that once started, we will finish.
Thanks. Peggy Price?
Yeah, so you're proposing to massively expand.
Peggy, you have to
your
have the
building.
microphone.
To what extent are you planning to expand your employment, your staffing, and where do you propose, if you do plan to do that, to put these people?
We don't have major expansion plans or adding new people, because again, we're committed to our current clinical services and the people that actually work in the building already. What we are committed to those people is a requisite space that they deserve to be able to provide the care to the patients they see each and every day.
So you're not expanding your staff with this? Thank you.
Alita? Wait, did you go already?
Is this the right time for comments or are we still in the
Did you
question
go
phase?
Yeah.
Well, you already went. Okay, sorry.
But I have comments, so will you call me later?
If there's time. I said there would only be like Judy's turn.
Okay, my question is totally different from anything anybody else will ask. I'll start by saying I'm co-chair of the Parks Committee. When I looked at all your drawings during your presentation, I didn't see a tree anywhere or any greenery. Are you planning, question one, are you planning on having any greenery around this institution? Because if so, you didn't show it in any of your plans, please tell us. And my second question is, if this project goes ahead and is approved by the city council, will you be doing community work groups where the people surrounding this institution will meet with you on some kind of a monthly basis to talk about the problems that arise?
The answer to both questions is yes. While we didn't put in the illustrative or conceptual drawings, a lot of greenery, we do have a commitment to having greenery. We would like the block to represent what it should in terms of the greenery and what we have even today. We'd like to improve upon what we have today. The second question, yes, we are committed to having access to the community to raise concerns throughout the construction period.
Will we see any drawings about the greenery?
I don't have them.
I don't mean now, I mean in the future.
Yes.
Sherry Weiner?
Our city council has a practice called council member deference. And I'm wondering, have you spoken to the city council member who represents the hospital? What is her position?
It's a he.
It's
Keith.
It's Keith.
Yes.
What is his, sorry, I thought it was Julie. What is his position on this? And do you know if he's planning to use his deference for or against the project?
I won't speak for the city council member. We have met with Keith Powers multiple times and we've kept in close contact throughout this process. We've asked him multiple times for advice and thoughts on what he thinks. He has continued to push us to reduce the height as we had in the various forms and plans. He understands and listens to all of you and makes that very clear to us equally. I don't know what Keith will intend to do, but it would be my hope that he would support the project. I think that committing again to healthcare in New York City and what it represents on a larger, greater good is a very, very important vote. So that is my hope, although I don't know what Keith will do.
Addison Lev?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. First of all, thank you, Northwell and Dr. Baker for being here today. I want to express my gratitude to Northwell's commitment to investing in the Upper East Side and healthcare on the Upper East Side. I think that one of the main draws of our neighborhood is the ease of access to world-class healthcare facilities. But with that said, I do share some of my colleagues' concerns, both about the size of the building and the duration of the project. I was looking at the floor plans for both proposals, both option 1 and option 2. And I noticed that there are varying degrees of ceiling heights, particularly for patient bed floors. Some are 13 feet, some are 16 feet, some are 18 feet. Forgive my medical and architectural ignorance, but can you explain the discrepancy in ceiling height and what the use of the higher 16 and 18-foot ceilings lengths are? Is it for medical equipment, airflow, aesthetics? Please comment. Thank you.
You ready?
Hi, I'm Thomas Ferson, I'm an architect. I'm part of a very large design and engineering team. Before I answer your question specifically, I want to tackle something very generally. We in New York City, over the last 2 decades, in residential high-rise construction, developers have kind of cooked the books and added mechanical height to floors to have apartments higher up. That is part of their business model. Hospital's business model is to make buildings as low as possible, functional, but as low as possible. Northwell, when we start the true design process after Bueller, will constantly come back to the top design team and say, make it lower, because every foot of construction is very expensive in this town. And what Northwell wants to do is put it into patient care. Now, I know you may not believe that, but that is the MO, is to, through the design process, make the building as low as we can. This is a preliminary design right now. At this moment in time, with today's mechanical technology, today's aspirations on sustainability, we believe the floor-to-floor heights are right at this stage. When we start the multiple-year design engineering phase after Bueller, we're going to work very hard to make it as efficient as possible. So a couple of reasons are driving the heights and the variations. Well, first of all, on the lower floors, we have to align with the existing hospital floors. And it's a lot of hardship to pack the mechanical, today's mechanical, not yesterday's mechanical, to do that, but we're kind of working it out. On the upper floors, we are required to have a system that allows, in certain instances, 100% outside air. That means good air comes in, bad air goes out. And this is new since COVID, hospitals for tomorrow, when they have to radically convert and cancel all elective surgeries and convert every room to an ICU type room, have to make almost the whole building 100% outside air. And that's a lot. And that's what the high floors, the high 16-foot floors are. But I do promise you that this client and other hospital clients I've worked with are constantly trying to say, squeeze it. Hope that answers your question.
Okay, we're gonna go to Zoom. TJ Stein, one of our members, is on Zoom.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yeah,
Can
one
you-
second. Actually, he's up here.
Can you hear me?
TJ, try speaking.
I'm talking. Can you hear me?
Present?
Can
TJ,
you
can you
hear
try
me?
speaking?
I'm talking. I'm
Yeah.
talking.
Sometimes.
Can you hear me?
All right, I think I know the problem.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go to somebody,
So hard.
TJ, real quick, and then we'll come back.
Can you hear me?
The laptop is right.
Guy, that's a different computer than what's gonna control the speakers. I promise you.
Go ahead,
Yes?
Sahar.
Can you hear me?
Hi, can you hear me?
No. Just
Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, thank you for being here and giving us such a detailed presentation. I have a few questions. One, is what just, my colleague just mentioned about the greenery. I was wondering, do you have anything on your roof that would be more environmentally friendly, like maybe have more greenery over there, and more for sustainability? So that's my one. Can I ask you?
Only if they're quick.
They're quick ones. So one of them is that, which you can say yes or no. The other thing I wanted to ask, do you, I was looking at the number of current hospital single beds and then the proposal. I was listening to you that, at the emergency room, there are like long waits, and none of us as patients want to see that. Do you have a time frame that how long it takes average a patient to get to a room? And what is your proposal? Like if you're increasing, you have all of these elements that we're talking about, is there a benefit to the, to all the, kind of expense that's costing us? Do you have a percentage for that? Third, very quick. That street is always is a lot of traffic. It's very hard to get through. It's so hard for the neighbors. During this 9-year period, what are your plans for the traffic mitigations while the construction is happening and while the hospital is working?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to answer the middle question and then I'll pass it along. I don't have a model that would tell you exactly what the improvement in the time frame would be. We do monitor our times in terms of how quickly a patient comes into the emergency department to let it receive care, as well as how quickly they go from being admitted to get into a bed. It is challenged by multiple things that would be improved by single bed rooms. That's both having to match not only gender, but whether or not the patient has an infectious disease or otherwise. And also all the testing that may have to go on in advance, particularly when we get into the cold and flu season with flu and RSV and COVID. So there are time savings there. To what degree that's modeled, I don't have, but there will be improvements.
So from the greenery perspective, we've actually spent some time of late talking about what is known as biophilic design, which is where we look at how do we incorporate greenery into the inside and outside of the facility, both from a sustainability and also from an experience perspective. We've even looked at, is there a way for us to bring some of that biophilic design into the facade of the building? So we not only can have some greenery in the setback roofs, but also as we work your way down the building, being able to incorporate some greenery into the facade to soften and bring some more nature into the building holistically. So it's something that we are looking at and are trying to employ as much as we can to
Go up because they're going down and up.
To traffic.
Thanks, Jonathan. Matt Harvey with ACARA. While we didn't develop the maintenance and protection of traffic plan, we did analyze it in the environmental impact statement. And in order to keep traffic moving on 76th Street and 77th Street, there will be off-street loading and unloading of trucks and materials in the parking lane that will go into gates that will be off the street, and one travel lane per direction, as well as the bike lane on 77th Street will be maintained. So the existing amount of traffic lanes will be maintained during construction. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna go to our board member on Zoom, TJ Stein.
You can hear me now?
Go ahead.
You can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to bring up, there doesn't seem to be any guarantee that the renovation will expand affordable or accessible care. The upgrade doesn't necessarily mean better outcomes for the average patient. I'm very familiar with hospital stays for not just myself, who's had 9 major surgeries over the last 5 years, but also for my 91-year-old mother and my father who passed at 92. I'd like to hear about the other areas, like benefits that we would see of staffing for a patient, not just a single room for a patient, because that's not going to help with someone that has life-threatening issues. I also see that this is a massive construction in a very dense residential area. I think it'll create noise, pollution, traffic without clear proportional benefits, and from what I've heard. And I think the duration and the size is a concern with the return of very little. And I think construction often goes much longer than it is, intended. So that's what I have to say. Thank you. And for that reason, I'm not going to be able to support it as it's presented.
Okay. I think there's some
Thank you.
there. Okay, Michael Anderson.
This is just a comment. Recently, we had a project built on 3rd Avenue and between 77th Street and 76th Street, Northwell Hospital. My unit office is right across the street from me. I could say firsthand, there was no disruption. The school's right down the block, Harvard was on the block. It was built Union, it was built safely. I believe Northwell claimed the same thing. A lot of people are asking why they can't find a different location. If you drive around Manhattan, there's no more holes in Manhattan. To get a hole, you have to tear a building down and build up. They're trying to build on the property that they have. I mean, there's questions about height and things of that nature, but to get a world-class facility and quality care, which everybody wants, they just don't want it in their neighborhood. But you do want it. You have to do certain things. You know, the older building, the heights are too low, the rooms are too small, that's why they have to do certain things. I support the project, I think it's gonna be built well. I think, superstructures, if you have the exterior, it's gonna go up. Start the interiors, the noise goes away. Like I said, if you was not in this neighborhood, you definitely want to go to a world-class facility.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, who else hasn't spoken yet that wants to speak? Oh, okay, sorry, dear. Sebastian Clark. Go ahead. No, I didn't see it. I was waiting for it.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I support this proposal and I hope you all will too. It's almost guaranteed that at some point in our lives, all of us or someone we love will need hospital care. And when that happens, I hope that all of us get really good care in a comfortable modern facility. Unfortunately, right now, that is not what Lenox Hill Hospital is. We have the opportunity, though, to get it close to that. With no cost to the taxpayer, we can get a fit-for-purpose modern emergency room, new operating theaters, and a private room for every patient. And remember, any one of us could be those patients needing these facilities. There are complaints we've been hearing. We hear about the height of the building, we hear about the disruption from the construction. The reality is the Upper East Side already has a lot of big buildings, and that's part of what makes Manhattan work. And when we need more space for all the things we need, the answer in this small island is to build upwards. Construction is annoying and it will be a bit disruptive to the people who live nearby. But part of the cost of living in a thriving city is sometimes there is some construction. So let's build and let's make sure that when sickness comes to our families, we have a great hospital facility to take care of us.
Okay, that's enough. Okay, everyone has been respectful so far. Just because you've heard an opinion that doesn't mirror your own, doesn't mean that it's not a valid opinion, okay? Let's be respectful. Thank you.
The statement was just made that there's no government money in this project. This is all private money, including.
The answer is yes. The question is there any state and federal money being used for the project? And I think your answer is no. So that's question and answer.
Follow up.
Wait, no.
Financing.
What?
What about?
The bonds are all privately bought.
The bonds are private exempt bonds, and that's a valid, answer. Okay, next, anybody on this side? Okay. Ed, you haven't gone yet.
I have a very good question. Two parts. How long is it going to last? Is it projected to right now, projected to last? And the hospitals could still remain open throughout the duration of the construction, is that correct? And how long right now is the expected construction right now today? Do you expect the beginning to end?
Can I ask you to clarify? I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure I understand.
Well, the minute the first shovel, the first backhoe, first 9 years comes off the truck.
9 years.
Break asphalt for the last.
9 years is the
door with a punch sheet.
9 years. Ed,
9 years.
Ed, the answer is 9 years. Okay, last person, because Alita didn't understand that she could ask her question and give a comment. So Alita, now it's your turn to give your comment.
Thank you, Valerie, appreciate that. So the Upper East Side has been accused of being a bunch of wealthy snobs, and this is our opportunity to say that the hospital should be built for part of it here and part of it in an area with that is a hospital desert. And as you explained, 8 beds downtown, and that's all there is below maybe 42nd Street, creates a hospital desert in Lower Manhattan, to say nothing of the outer boroughs that we saw very clearly during the and the elevator shafts are a supersonic highway for infectious disease pathogens. So I don't understand how a 43-story or 430-foot building does not create a more dangerous internal environment because of that. Third, the effect is permanent, but the desire to keep the hospital open is temporary. You can move patients to other hospitals, have other doctors move around, which some hospitals do, and then not have a permanent impact on the community of a building that seems to be much higher than it would need to be if you moved patients someplace else to be treated. And this is underlined by the experience of a friend who went for radiology exams at a hospital in Westchester undergoing construction, and she felt the vibrations during the construction. So who would be comfortable in a hospital undergoing construction? Because we all know, who's ever been through or been to a construction site, that dust permeates everything, that vibrations permeate and sound do no matter what. And it seems like a situation contrary to the mission of Lenox Hill to have people treated in a hospital during construction. Unions will work. I know we had a lot of union speakers at the last meeting. They will work wherever the hospital is being built, whether it's the Upper East Side or someplace else. So unions will clearly continue to have jobs. And I noticed when the last time you did your presentation that views are considered an asset of the tower. So I'm wondering how much of this is in order to give people for whom originally, and I've been involved in this as a participant in the task force at Galva's office because I was chair, and I'd just like to say that in the very beginning, the community board wasn't even invited to the initial presentation of your plans. So there seems to be a disparity between the community interest and the actual stuff that's going on. But initially, there was a focus on making Lenox Hill look like a luxury hospital with crystal chandeliers and spa-like amenities, and a quote from the patient that said, "It was so nice that I didn't want to leave." And so I'm wondering whether the views from the hospital and their concierge service as well for people coming in from out of the country. So I'm wondering, and because no hospital has a Park Avenue address, whether that is part of any of this and a luxury effect. That's my most minor question, I suppose, but the rest of it is that hospitals should be built where people need them, and we don't need as much here. So thank you very much for your patience. Thank you, Valerie.
Okay, all right. I think we're at the end of the board questions. Anthony, did you want to say something? You haven't
Yes.
spoken.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Valerie. I'd like to make a motion to disapprove this application, and if seconded, would like to speak to it very briefly.
Okay.
All right.
Do you have, you seem to be reading from something. Do you want to hand something out? Oh, okay. I see Elizabeth.
No, we're doing the handouts.
Okay.
I'm not gonna.
Okay, go ahead. Just go ahead.
Just something to remember, there are a couple of things just to remember, and then I have a comment and a rhetorical question. We all live in New York City, and we all live in the most densely populated 2 square miles in the United States. Community District 8. And so that's just something for all of us to bear in mind. I think we should also bear in mind that even though the building is enclosed after 6.5 years, which seems an eternity, the fallout from the construction continues throughout the entire construction process. This is Manhattan. There's no place to put materials. There's no place to store anything. There are lanes that will have to be disrupted. If the disruption and if not the actual jackhammering will continue through the entire construction process. And it would be naive of us to believe that it would be otherwise. Now, the applicants demand that Lenox Hill Hospital remain fully operational and that the hospital remain in place throughout the construction process clearly establishes the proposed development's original sin, from which sprout all of its defects, which have been enumerated and elaborated upon over the course of many afternoons and evenings over the course of the last 6 years. At the heart of our long deliberations actually lies the question, with all due respect, would anyone in his right mind build a hospital at this exact location if there were not one already here? That's it.
Okay, so. Are we done? I think, okay, so Anthony's resolution is in front of all the board members. And you can.
You may not have to read all the whereases, but I think you have to read the be it resolved into the record.
Oh, okay, we're gonna do that in a minute. Just give me a second. I wanted to give all the board members an opportunity to read it, and then I will read it into the record while I'm assuming everyone will be reading to themselves. Just for clarification, for those of you who don't know, Anthony is one of the co-chairs of our zoning development and housing committee that has held many of the meetings related to Lenox Hill House. Anthony, you're not one of the co-chairs?
No.
Yeah,
I am.
You're looking like, okay.
Just gesturing.
No, okay. And he's held many of the meetings that related to this project over the course of many years. So, for everyone else, I will read, the resolution. It is a disapproval that we are, hold on one second, just let me get my glasses. Thank you. There's a bunch of whereases, and it's just basically that we're resolving that this application is disapproved as presented unless each of the following conditions is met. A, applicant commits to a maximum height of 215 feet. No bonus mechanisms will allow any increase in height. Applicant commits to either, but not both, of the transit improvement and hospital floor area bonuses requested by the special permit pursuant to ZR section 74-904 and ZR section 66-51. Applicant commits to mapping the entirety of the zoning lot within an MIH district. D, applicant commits and obtains the commitment of other necessary stakeholders to an accessible entrance to both the southbound and northbound platforms of the IRT subway at the 77th Street station. Applicant commits to permanent hospital use on the entire zoning lot. And if applicant sells the Park Avenue frontage for residential development, applicant will notify the public and commit to allocating at least 5% of the sales price for transit improvements and other community benefits to be determined. Applicant commits to provide parking on-site or new off-site parking locations to accommodate staff and patients/visitors. Applicant commits to request no after-hours variance permits in connection with this project without the prior approval of the community board. An applicant commits to establishing a community hospital in one of the healthcare deserts in Manhattan. And that is the motion. And we had a second?
I had a second.
We had a second. Michelle, do you want to speak?
Yeah, I have a friendly
Can wait
amendment.
just 1 second.
I have a
Sorry,
loud
thank
voice.
you.
I have a friendly amendment in that I don't see anywhere in the resolved parts the mention of any additional height or building in the mid-block. And I would like to add that to say that there is no additional height building into the mid-block, that all of the height resides on Lexington Avenue. It's not addressed in any of these, and I think it should be. Friendly amendment?
Anthony, it's your motion.
No,
No?
because I think that while maybe I better.
Sorry.
While I agree, Michelle, in spirit, we want them to do all of these things, and if we add that, then the only thing they can do is move away.
I don't know.
Okay,
That's not
well,
true.
anybody else have a comment
that's
on the
okay.
motion? Russell, you haven't spoken yet. Go ahead.
Thank you. So first, just procedurally, I personally would prefer if we split these out and vote on the different aspects of this individually.
You mean on each unless? Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well,
Which splitting it where?
Just split all of the, so there's a resolution with a bunch of, A through I. And I think we should vote on them individually. I don't think we should vote on the whole thing as an all or nothing thing, because I think it's gonna be too. It's like a shame to vote against the whole resolution if you disagree with one aspect of it or whatever. I think procedurally we should split it out.
I'm sorry.
are you, he's saying that we shouldn't just use the package unlesses as a package, that we should vote for those. For
I
each
just want a
one.
separate vote on each one, A through I.
No, I don't think it's a substitute motion yet. All right, let's keep,
Well, I think
can we?
procedurally, aren't we entitled when we have a multifaceted motion to split it out into the individual things? I think that's a
But
procedural.
no, but this is one motion. It's one motion with components to it.
Then I
It's
would
not,
make it as a substitute motion.
Well,
We should have it separately. Then the substitute motion is, it's gonna ultimately be 11 different things, because it's each of these 9 separately, plus 2 other comments that I would like to add.
well, do you want to add your 2 to the list as a friendly amendment proposed?
I'm gonna vote on them separately in addition to making the comments.
Well, can you hold
And
on
asking to
that till we?
include the comments.
Yes, I second that.
So now that it's seconded, I'll speak to it.
Okay. I think it's. It's a substitute.
The other 2, Right, it is, it's a substitute motion.
Okay.
That's how I was.
Point of order, Madam Chair. He already spoke before to put the motion, the substitute motion.
It's a procedural question.
At the beginning.
It was, I
Somebody
think it
can
was a
do that.
procedural question. I mean, I'm looking at a parliamentarian who hides all of his emotions under his mask. So I sure Chuck is agreeing with me. Okay, so go ahead and speak.
Okay, so the additional 2 points that I would add.
You're
are-
saying two
But you're adding
motions.
them to be voted on separately.
Right.
Okay.
Right, J and K. J. I think we should express the fact that we as Community Board 8 are open to the idea of closing the hospital during the course of the construction. And K would be expressing our preference for uniform height across the lot. The reason for J is, as I understand it, a lot of the additional sort of size and construction time, which from the comments and my perspective, those are the major problems with it, that the scale is too massive and that the construction is going to be too lengthy, that those can be addressed if we close the hospital while the construction is going on. I understand
Okay, go ahead.
why one wouldn't want to do that. I think we are fortunate in this community district that we do have a lot of hospitals in this vicinity. And so we're actually uniquely positioned to be able to sort of sustain that kind of closure. And it does seem to me to be something that would actually solve this issue. And it's also a situation where we as the community board, we're the only ones I feel like who can say this, right? On behalf of the community, saying what is, often thought of as unthinkable. Why would you close a hospital for any period of time? But to me, that solves the issue. And I think we can absorb the need in the other healthcare facilities we have in this neighborhood temporarily, particularly if the construction is going to be shorter. In terms of making it uniform across the lot, which I think is possible if we do close it temporarily, I think that cuts down on the bulk, sort of out of character, tower that I think a lot of us are concerned about, and enables, basically something that's easier to live with.
Okay, well, first of all, if we do this individually, you're saying we're gonna vote on each one of these individually. So if it's a disapproval, unless it's uniform across the lot, and now they build and they ignore every other condition, you've basically said, okay, is that what the intent of your motion is?
My intention is for us to present one list of the things that we would like to see. And it's just that I personally don't agree with every single thing that's A through J, so I want to be able
Well,
to.
why didn't you just say what you didn't agree with?
Because if we get through, because then we're gonna have a lengthy debate on each single issue and what comes in and what comes out, and you have to vote on the different things. This way, if
So
you just
then
have
aren't
up
you
or down
saying-
vote. Who agrees with A? If it's a majority of the people, A goes in. Who agrees with B? It's a majority, and anybody can comment on A or B as they want to. It just seems to me that if I make a comment that I don't like, whichever one it is, and it's not accepted as a friendly amendment to take it out, where are we? So I just want to be
Okay.
able to vote
I
yes on
hear
the
what
things
you're
I agree
saying.
with,
I
no
hear-
on the things that I don't.
Okay, but if I say, okay, how many people for A? And we get a positive on A, so that will be one of the unlicensed. We're still in a disapproval mode.
Yeah.
Okay, but we're gonna take each one of these.
Correct.
So rather than your substitute motion, why don't we just agree that we're still in the disapproval? Let me finish. And then we get a complete alphabet list here of things that people want. And then we will just go through A, B, C, D, and E. But I don't even, and then that's the motion we will be voting on. Once we go through this list, is that what you're saying? Because otherwise, we're gonna waste our time going through A through Z, and someone's gonna say, all right, now we're gonna approve.
Voting separately on each of these is the first thing that I proposed, and you guys said we couldn't do it. I had to do it as a substitute motion, so that's.
No, I didn't say that at
In terms
all.
of the timing, I don't think it makes a difference timing wise, whether you vote separately on A through K as part of one motion technically
Okay.
or a separate motion, so
Alright, well-
timing wise, it doesn't matter. So it's up to you how you wanna do it, but I just wanna have a separate vote on each.
So the substitute motion is that we're gonna vote, your substitute motion is that it's a disapproval, but then we're
My
gonna.
substitute motion is what I said, it's separate motions. It's
That
11
doesn't
separate
make
motions.
11 separate disapproval motions, that doesn't make any sense.
That's yes, that's how I wanna do it, I wanna
Oh,
vote separate.
okay, well then we're gonna vote on that motion. That's the motion we're gonna vote on. His motion is that we're going to vote on we're gonna vote on every single prong of the motion.
But does he,
As a
does he
separate motion.
need them to be freestanding, or after that, he's gonna put them back in one?
Are you gonna put them back in one? Okay,
Yeah.
okay, but that, we're saying the same thing, I think, but
What are you gonna do? Is he gonna put it back into
What are
one
you saying, Chuck?
resolution?
Oh,
no,
it's really one motion.
Can't hear you, Chuck.
It's really one motion.
Well, that's what we're asking him. Is it gonna be one?
It's really one motion. Now, having a motion with all these conditions makes it tougher, but it seems to me you have to vote it up or down with the conditions. If you want to amend things to take out the conditions, you can try and do that. You can make an amendment that ought to be directed to the individual condition. That's the way you ought to handle it. And so if somebody wants to, if for instance, Russell say, okay, I'd like to eliminate, my amendment would be to disapprove, but I eliminate A, B, D, E, and F. That's, we would vote on that. That's the way you have to do it. I don't think we can just
okay,
take a vote on.
but that's not what he's saying.
I understand.
Okay, I just wanna make sure that you and I understand.
Yeah, yeah.
That's not what you're saying. That's not what you're saying,
I mean, I
Russell.
don't think we'll get anywhere if we just go back and forth on this.
Point of information.
Just why can't we just vote separately on A? Why can't we vote separately on B? Why can't we vote separately on C?
Point of information. Sure. Seems to me like the motion is whether or not we take them separately. I don't think that we can vote on a substitute motion of 11 things. Shouldn't we first vote on whether or not we take them separately?
I think
And
that's the
then if we
motion.
approve that-
That's okay. All right, so that's the motion. The motion on the floor is that
Division of the question.
division of the question. Thank you.
Point of information, then, let me clarify. If we do that, does that mean that if it reverts back to, if we do that and it reverts back to the original resolution, does that mean that there is no opportunity for amending any of the, A through whatever?
We will have already done that.
Well, we haven't, because the substitute motion interrupted that process. So will you then return to that process? And
Yes.
vote on
Yes,
it?
I think
Yes.
we can change whatever we
We
want.
can change whatever we want, yeah.
No, the substitute motion is whether or not to vote on them separately. That's the substitute motion. It's not mentioning the individual. For example, I would not vote for I. I don't believe it's within.
Okay, but you're gonna have that opportunity.
Well, we're not apparently. We're not gonna have that opportunity.
No, we are.
You will.
We're dividing it up.
Well, you just said you're not dividing it up. You just said you're just voting on whether or not to vote on it separately.
Right.
If that
Right, and
motion
once
gets
we go
voted
through that,
down,
and once
if
we,
it gets voted down and we're not
then
voting.
someone
on
will
that
make a
separately.
new motion. Then someone may make a new motion. Do you have one?
Yes, I'd like to know, is it appropriate at this time to present a substitute?
No,
motion?
no, it's not appropriate at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
It's a procedural vote now. as I
right, the
understand
proceed,
it,
yes.
On whether
It's
to
just
split
whether
it.
or not to.
Okay.
And we resume the
What is
substantive
Ed
discussion.
saying?
What's in the resolution?
I would like to call the question.
Thank you. Okay, this is a motion to divide up the motion.
To take them separately.
Correct.
It's just to take them separately, it's not on what they.
Correct. It's to take them separately.
Okay.
All right,
It's just procedural.
let's take the roll.
Anderson. Yes. Angelos. Ashby.
No.
Barron.
No.
Bayham Michaels. Birnbaum.
Pass.
Boris.
Yes.
Camp. Shu. Cone.
No.
Faber.
No.
It's a question.
Helen Clark, yes. Herzog.
No.
Halpern. Hussein.
Which, yeah, some of that.
Johnson,
Pass.
Prickler. Later. Yes. Leave. Mason,
No.
McClellan,
No.
Maya, not here.
Yes.
Mossman.
No.
Partial.
No.
Phillips. Pope Marshall,
No.
Popper,
No.
Price, Rose, Salcedo,
No.
Sanchez, Ida, Dixon.
Yeah, she's a.
Don't talk, Craig. Hold on.
Did you say me?
Yes or no?
I'm a no.
Silla, Stillway, Squire,
Yes.
Stein,
No.
Mayo, Wald, Warren, Weiner, pass, Birnbaum,
No.
Hussein.
Wait.
Okay. 12 yes, 25 no.
Okay, so the motion fails. Well,
Yes.
go ahead. She
Okay.
had her hand up first.
Yeah, so I would like to make a substitute motion, which, includes the whereases that are stated on these pieces of paper, and includes all but number I, take number I out, which is the applicant commits to establishing the community hospital in another area. I don't think that's within our purview to demand that of the developer or anybody else. So I would like that one removed, and I would like added, that there is a commitment for no building in the mid-block, that whatever height there is on Lexington Avenue. That's the substitute motion.
No height?
No, they have option 1 and option 2. That is not addressed in this resolution. One option, where?
A, applicant commits to maximum height of 215 feet, period.
Yes, I see that, but that doesn't determine where. They are recommending 2 locations. That is on Lexington Avenue. It makes no mention of the mid-block. I want to clarify. I don't think it does. That doesn't.
What if we change the language so that it says uniform for the zoning law?
Fine.
And did you have another one? Did you want to add? Do you
No,
want to add?
That was it. I wanted to get rid of that, and as long as it says.
It's uniform to the zoning law.
Well, let me understand what that means. Does uniform for the zoning lot mean that it can be 25 feet in each of those 2 proposed buildings? Because if that's what it means, no. If it means for only one of those locations, that's fine. So I want to just.
What do you mean by locations?
You have 2 suggestions for increased height. One is on Lexington Avenue and one is further west into the street. It's right there on the model, the mid-block. I'm saying I don't want any height increases in the mid-block. I did just say that. That's what I just said.
How would you translate
Well,
that?
okay, that's what I'm saying now, okay?
I think.
Anthony clarified it by saying uniform on the zoning law. But to me, while I agree without thinking, to me, that can be misconstrued to mean that it can be a unified 25 feet anywhere within the zoning law.
I don't know.
215 feet, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Are you gonna take any of Russell's suggestions? Preference for uniform height, uniform across the lot, no building?
Well, that actually is what that's actually what.
What A is?
Really.
Okay, all right.
A is really.
So that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second? Okay.
The only item that I am withdrawing is I, asking the applicant to commit
to building another healthcare facility elsewhere. I don't think that's within our purview, and that's an awfully big ask, and not, I don't think it should be there. And the only thing that's changing is the language of A to make it clear that the height of 215 can only be in that Lexington Avenue location.
Okay.
Yes, those we accept as friendly amendments.
Yeah, okay.
Were Russell's accepted as friendly amendments? I don't know.
No.
It sounds like A.
It sounds
one of
like
them was
A
covered
covers
by
them. One of them is covered by A. All right, so the motion is what's on your piece of paper, or papers, exclusive of what was before I. We're gonna make it uniform to the zoning law, but.
For A.
For A, yes, got it. All right, so, does anybody want to call the question?
Wait, point of information.
I'm sorry. People are talking about. What? Could you, I'm sorry, I really am. Could you repeat what we're voting on?
We're essentially back to the original motion, but we're taking A through H, and that's it. I think that's
And
really
A
it.
is being changed to say
Uniform,
maximum height of
uniform, zone, right, exactly,
Everywhere.
everywhere.
Thank you, sir. Yeah.
I'm asking, is there any other comments, or do we call in the questions? Peggy, go ahead.
No, we're voting. No, not while we're voting.
Well. Dan, is there anything you want to say? I apologize. I was gonna go to you long before we got down, just Eddie's reaction to what I said. Well, I want to be courteous. They've been here and they've been answering all of our questions. If you have any response to any of the conditions.
The conditions would make the project impossible. So you're essentially voting no on the entire.
Yes. Okay,
And
well,
if that's debt 5,000 cuts, then I understand.
okay, well, maybe we can see how it works out. This is the first step in the process. I appreciate your candor, as always. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else? Ed, yes.
Can you clarify what we're voting
Wait, there's a
Oh, I'm
friend-
sorry, Sahar, yes.
What's the height right now?
Can't hear you,
Dan, what's the current height? It's, I know it's below,
130.
a little bit below 200.
Yes, the current right now.
What it is now?
Of the proposal or of the existing?
Building.
The existing building at the mid block is right around 200 feet.
Okay,
It's 200
yes.
In the mid block.
In the mid.
In the mid.
So the question's been called.
I thought it was a little lower on the avenues. I thought you were at like 175 on the avenue.
He said on the mid block.
Yeah, on the avenue, you're at 175. Yes, that.
Can you just clarify?
Questions.
What's
been
the point of
called.
order? What's the clarification?
Can you please clarify what a yes vote means and what a no? vote
Okay,
means?
if you're,
Because
we're gonna get there,
personally
yeah.
am incredibly confused.
Okay.
And
It's a
don't appreciate the way this is written. You know,
Okay,
it's-
well, it's written as a
Right,
disapproval
it's written
unless.
as disapproval unless, you know, you have 100
Right,
conditions here.
right.
It's just very confusing. I think. people
Okay,
have to
well-
understand what they're doing. I don't.
Okay, all right, well, here's what we'll do. Is the question called?
Yes.
Okay, everyone's in favor of it, anybody against calling the question? Okay, you're against it? Okay. I'm here. What?
Just to clarify regarding the bonuses, which one would yield a lower building?
Well, actually, obviously, the bigger the bonus, the more building there is.
So that's why I'm asking,
But there's a-
because you say either one or the other.
That's right, and I think that the idea is to generate a
Oh.
little give back from
As
the
opposed
applicant
to-
as part of the process, and whether it's just, see, half a thing is, for the. Half of the are, right, which is 40,000 square feet. It's two, which would then be 160,000 square feet. obviously there are people in the room who would prefer neither bonus, but that's, undoubtedly not achievable. So the idea is to say either or rather than both.
Okay, so thank you. So to clarify, we are voting on a disapproval, okay, with conditions. So a yes vote means that you are voting to disapprove the project as presented. Yeah, unless those conditions that are set forth are satisfied.
But only
So
A through H.
A through H, thank you, only A through H. If you are on the other side and you want to approve the project, then you are going to vote no.
No. If you
Or
don't
you
like,
don't like the other
if you
conditions.
don't like the resolution,
Right,
you're voting no.
essentially. If you don't like the resolution, you're gonna vote no, okay? So let's call the roll. Thank you.
Anderson. Angelos.
Pass, okay.
Ashby.
Yes.
Barron.
Yes.
Bear Michaels. Birnbaum.
Yes.
Boris. Kemp.
Yes.
Chu. Cone.
Yes.
Barber. Tom Clark.
No.
Hartsock.
Yes.
Halpern. Sorry, just let me. Okay, Hussein.
No.
Johnson. Brickler. Later, no. Lev. Mason.
Yes.
McClemens. Partial. Pope Marshall.
Yes.
Popper.
Yes.
Price. Rose.
Yes.
Salcido.
Yes.
Sanchez. Schneider.
No.
Seligson.
Yes.
Selim.
No.
Selway.
Yes.
Squire.
Yes.
Stein.
Yes.
Tamayo.
Yes.
Wald.
Yes.
Warren.
No.
Weiner.
Yes.
Let's go back to the passes. Angelos. Bear Michaels.
Pass.
I don't think you can
You
pass.
can't pass. You're either gonna abstain or you're gonna vote yes or no. Yeah.
Johnson. I think that's it. So it passed 23 to 15.
Okay. Okay, so the application is disapproved unless certain conditions are satisfied and those conditions are set forth. Say, I don't think that this is a thing to be excited over. This is the beginning of a process, and this has been a very tough period for the community board and for the community and for the hospital. We're all neighbors. And I hope we can move forward and continue to be a part of the process. I just want to thank everyone for coming. I want to thank the hospital for working with us to get to this point. I want to thank my board for their attention and diligence in this issue. Addison, do you want to say something?
Can I give my vote for no to abstain?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
I'll do it.
Yeah, you can do that.
Do you have anything else to say?
Do you have anything else, Marcy?
I don't want to. Sure, yes, yes.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Valerie, it's Miranda. We had coffee like a month ago. Yeah, hi guys. Well, I just wanted to ask how many people